Okay. Hi, I am with Martie Morris, and she is actually a previous client of GAMMS Unlimited Life and Career Coaching. And I wanted to just ask you a few questions, Martie, about your experience with GAMMS Unlimited. The first question I have is in regards to the battery assessment, the Highlands Ability Battery Assessment that you took. What was your experience like taking that assessment? And were there any positive results that came out of that for you?
Yeah. The assessment, I found it to be entirely different than what I would normally expect of the assessments I'm used to taking, like in school and in college.
Right.
Um, it had a very unique way of kind of gauging all sorts of things about your personal makeup. So it wasn't really. I don't recall there being like very pointed or loaded questions that kind of geared you to answer a certain way. Which I liked because
Yes.
I had no idea of what it was really going to collect and how it was going to be used to observe me. And that's probably better that I didn't really understand like
Right.
the logic and the algorithms that it uses. So I just did it, based on the instructions and some of the scenarios. At times, you look at them and you say, "Well, what do you need to know this for? Why do you
Right.
want me to listen to music?" I mean, not to give away how it works, but
Right.
I had never taken an assessment like that.
Wow.
So I found it very interesting. It was very thorough. I was extremely happy with the results. And it probably revealed a few things that um, maybe I hadn't acknowledged in myself, but it also reconfirmed a lot of things
Oh,
and
wow.
solidified a lot of why I do what I do. And it was a way to kind of explain it.
Mm,
And also, the results kind of talked about how to channel those strengths.
right.
And that was the key for me. I think that was always missing is not just having an assessment of who I am or who I think I am or how others would
Mm,
perceive me, but taking the why of what we do and having an assessment say, oh, and that's useful in this arena,
wow.
or there are these types of words to describe your strengths and weaknesses. So it was empowering because I said, wow, those are the things that I've been trying to put my finger on, trying to describe, trying to categorize,
Yes.
that I haven't been able to figure out for myself. So in an indirect way, it kind of helped me, really brainstorm not only how to brand myself for marketing myself for a future career, but um, I kind of surprised Maxine and ended up in a situation where I decided to take a lot of what I had learned and coincidentally applied it to a huge decision I made to leave a company that I was with.
Wow.
And I was able to describe to a new boss where he and I were just kind of always at odds or in conflict with each other's styles. I was able to tell him based off of that assessment that, hey, this is who I am. This is
Mm.
how I would describe myself. These are my strengths, my weaknesses. They're not good or bad, and neither are yours. But this is maybe why we don't mesh. This is what I can bring to you, to this position, and to this company. And I was able to do that in a way that I hadn't been able to describe before.
That's awesome.
So it came in right on time for me to be able to say, if these assets are not valuable to this role, um, no hard feelings, but they're meant
Right.
for something else or someplace else. And
Okay.
and he, was astonished. He's like, huh, okay, so you're thinking about leaving because this is who you are, and there's no real room for nudging or no room to budge. And I said, well, it's not so much that, it's just that I didn't necessarily tell him about the assessment, but I was like, I really, really feel like this is who I am, and maybe this just isn't a right fit for me, and I'm okay with that.
Wow.
So it was very empowering to be able to say, no, this perfectly describes who I am, and who I am is totally fine, but who I
Yes.
am is not a fit for everything.
Right.
So it's
Absolutely.
very coincidental that it was able to help me in that realm.
Okay. So you're glad that you took the Highlands Ability Battery Assessment.
Absolutely. Is everything Maxine said it was going to be. I especially liked that it was a one-time thing. It wasn't something like the others that you would take maybe at different stages in your life, at high school, college,
Right.
at the professional level. It's something that really kind of, I think, assesses you at your core, no
Mm,
matter where you're going to go in life. And I totally agree with it. And it was so comprehensive that I know, and I still do, I know I can still go back to it
wow.
and say, okay, if I start to get off track with who with me at my core, or how to describe myself,
Mm-hmm.
then I know I can go back there, because I agreed with everything that was on it. There wasn't any particular thing where I said, no, no, I don't know about that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's because it went so deep into all sorts of things about how you listen, about how well you retain, all sorts of
Yes.
things. Yeah, so it was definitely worth it. I've talked it up a lot to people I know, and especially people younger than me. And I was telling, like, my younger sister, who's also met Maxine, I said, if this was something that I could have taken high school or and during my early college career, would have saved me
Mm,
tons of time not
awesome.
searching or trying to reinvent myself all the time.
Wow.
Yeah.
I understand that GAMS Unlimited also serviced you in regards to your resume,
Yes.
completing a resume for you. So, how was your experience with completing your resume or having GAMS Unlimited create your resume, assist you with that service? And what were the positive results in regards to that as well?
It was very empowering. Very empowering. I would say the main theme that I feel like Maxine and GAMS have helped me to uncover is that I was always underselling myself.
Mm,
That I was kind of taking this extremely humble approach, and also this approach that wasn't, it was attractive, but it wasn't doing enough to illustrate exactly what my experience looked like. It was,
wow.
my previous resumes were either real jargon heavy, which didn't necessarily appeal to multiple industries, and that's the type of person I like to be, is
Mm-hmm.
cross industries. And so she was able to really spot that and say, well, wait a minute, one thing that's also missing is that you're not highlighting your achievements in a way that's measurable, that creates a picture that tells the company not so much what your functions were, but what value you have added and what you could potentially add. So I was more so doing what other people are guilty of doing. We're all guilty of writing those resumes that
Mm-hmm.
just read as job descriptions. And
Yeah.
that's what I would steal my material from, is my old job descriptions, and say, well, this is what I did. Yep, that sounds good. But it didn't say, well, what's going to make me a better candidate than the next.
Right.
And so she really helped me to comb through so much of my work history that I had never been good at documenting. I never even really thought or been told enough to document myself. And
Mm,
I would leave that up to management. And being a former manager, you get management amnesia, and nobody's going to remember for each and every individual employee what you've done over the last year, especially if you have multiple. And I was putting myself in that position to just kind of be a number, until she taught me, like, no, you are your own advocate. You're going to document your achievements on a very regular basis and do your CARs, which I touted to my old team all the time: the challenges, actions, and results. And once I started getting to that habit of saying, not only is this helpful for the resume, this is helpful for my confidence level, or when
mm,
it's time to talk just in general about my value, um, that those exercises, and then taking that to the next level and saying, now take what's resume worthy and put it on that resume, and don't just use the same resume for
mm-hmm.
every position. Guilty as charged. I've done that a million times. But take your cars and make it easy to tailor your resume to the industry or to the position. And once I was able to do that, that's when I was like, wow, I like this resume for once. I'm not looking at this resume like I'm begging or like I'm pleading for an interview. I think this resume rocks for once. And I can easily switch out achievements if necessary, and know that this is going to be a killer resume, which is how I landed this job. So
Oh, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Great. Wow. So I know you said that's how you landed that job. So we write the resume. Um, it's great to have the resume, but it's like once you get in the door, now you have to do the interviewing.
Yes.
So I understand that Games Unlimited also serviced you with interviewing, helping with
Yes.
interviewing skills. So, what was your experience like with the interviewing skills? We know the positive result is that you did land the job, but what was it like
Yes.
going through that portion of the program of interviewing?
With the preparation, it was excellent. The only preparation I was typically used to um, was just pulling down questions from the internet of what are you going to be asked and kind of rehearsing what I thought were good answers. And they had been good enough, I think, to land the jobs I'd had in the past. But then at this different phase of my life with a more competitive market, changing industries, changing roles, I found I found it to where I was getting interviews, but I wasn't necessarily getting the positions. And
Wow.
so I needed that prep because I was also kind of used to having very rehearsed answers for things. And I didn't necessarily tailor every answer to every role and get really specific and pull out the information that was an appropriate or a relevant challenge action result for
Mm,
the role. It's kind of like, hey, I got my one script, usually with my one generic resume, and I'm just going to blast that to everybody. And that approach worked when I was in a different phase of my career, but it wasn't working this time.
mhm, mhm.
So that's where Maxine taught me that, not only do you get to the point of interview, but with interviewing, you have to, take your challenges, your actions, and your results, and you're also going to take that and you're going to tease out what's necessary for that role that you're interviewing for, and
Wow.
keep your answers very relevant to that position. And which makes sense in hindsight because it's like, well, yeah, you're applying for that particular position. But I think my mind was always geared a little bit towards saying, let's just see how many positions we get. Or if we get this position, we'll just work with it. And also, I needed to hear, or I needed to be taught too, that I'm interviewing them.
Yes.
So it might not be the position that I want if I do my homework and get my questions answered and say, I don't know about that.
Mhm.
So, and I think also going through a long unemployment chapter too, it was very tempting to say, just present who you think um, they want to see.
Mm.
And so that was a very, you know, um, that was a confidence roller coaster.
Mhm.
Being unemployed and wanting to fall back on just be presentable, just kind of be a chameleon
Mhm.
versus saying, no, have the confidence to go in and say, this is who I am. You
Mhm.
know yourself. You're equipped with your assessment. You're equipped with your resume that you tailored to get you to that interview. Now show them who you really are. Don't fall back on being just presentable or likable.
Yes.
Get your answers, show them who you really are, and state what your personal value is, not what you think they like to hear, because that's probably going to be what everybody's doing.
Okay.
And the mock interviews really helped because there were things that Maxine could point out and say, well, that answer, that response could be stronger. So she was able to kind of see and hear, like, well, these are some of your tendencies that you're leaning towards, or that's a good answer, but you want to, not go so broad, so wide, and really get into the why of why I was choosing the answers I was choosing. And I needed that. And it wasn't always a comfortable feeling because once you're so rehearsed, and especially if you're a presenter, like I'm a presenter, you start to feel like, oh no, I got this.
Mhm. Mhm.
Until you really hear it from from an HR professional / former hiring manager, and you're like, oh, that's how I sound. Because that you don't always get that feedback from, the person that hires you or doesn't,
Right.
who's willing to give that.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're actually going to be having workshops dealing with resumes and interviewing. So I guess it's safe to say that you would recommend to others to make sure that they come to GAMS Unlimited so that they can get their resume created the right way in a professional manner so that they can land that job and also go through the interviewing process as far as interviewing skills at GAMMS Unlimited as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. From the time I first met Maxine, I have, anytime I've met with her and GAMS and just in general, I know it's always saved me time and the headache of just kind of, casting a wide net and just crossing your fingers and hoping that, that you land that something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's awesome. Thank you. I really
You're
appreciate
welcome.
we really appreciate it here at GAMMS Unlimited for your time and just giving us your stamp of approval
Absolutely.
for the
Absolutely.
program that we have here. So we enjoyed talking to you, and we hope to talk to you soon. Have a great day.
Thanks. You too.